didn't see that. My name is Jake Denberg, and I'm here to talk to you about imperialism. Imperialism, defined as a policy of extending a country's power and influence through diplomacy or military force. Since the 1450s, imperialism has been one of the world's most powerful forces, proving the global leaders and suppressing the weaker nations and indigenous peoples. China benefited from the use of imperialism on its neighboring countries. However, imperialistic actions taken on by other nations detrimented the growth and livelihood of the Chinese emperor as well. Chapter 2. Lin Zihu's advice to the Queen. The Opium Wars were a difficult time in China. Opium, a powerful, highly addictive narcotic, is now a fundamental ingredient in a variety of synthetic drugs, such as heroin and codeine. Although opium had been used in China for centuries beforehand, addiction to the drug became a recurring theme in China after the opening of the tea trade to the British and Dutch in the early 19th century. When the Emperor of China's son died of an overdose due to the potent drug, the ubiquity of opium was finally too much for the country, and Li Zihu, a Chinese commissioner at the time, was sent to Canton, home of the East India Company's largest port, to negotiate an end to the opium trade. The British were uncooperative and fought the Chinese, subsequently winning. Li Zihu then sent a letter to the Queen of England in an attempt to end the conflict through reason. There's no evidence that the Queen ever did read the letter, but if so, she never did anything about it. Now that you know what caused them, why don't I tell you a couple things about the Opium Wars? Here it is. The Opium Wars took place from 1839 to 1842. The wars demonstrated Britain's firepower and China's lack of technology. Britain was upset with China's lack of trade with foreign countries, keeping extremely valuable goods to themselves. Britain's navy was so strong it easily destroyed China's biggest coastal and river forts. A British fleet sailed up to Nanjing, a major supplier of grain to all of China, and cut off the grain supply to most of the country. In 1842, the Chinese Empire agreed to open up 5 ports for British trade. China agreed to cede the island of Hong Kong to Great Britain after these wars. The Opium Wars have been considered the beginning of modern Chinese history. The Taiping Rebellion. Ravaging the majority of China, the Taiping Rebellion lasted the better part of 14 years. The rebellion began under the leadership of Hong Shixuan, a Christian convert who thought he was the son of God and the brother of Jesus. His goal was to establish what he called Heavenly Kingdom of Supreme Peace in the Chinese Empire. The revolt appealed to peasants in the empire as well. Due to the rapid population growth at the time, the majority of the peasants were forced to live out lives as sharecroppers or landless laborers, a very unappealing lifestyle. In 1853, the rebels seized Nanjing, the old capital of the Ming Empire, and a very large and important city in the Chinese Empire at that time. Not long afterwards, the rebellion began to disperse. It was finally suppressed in 1864, but the cat was already out of the bag by then. The brute revolution cost the lives of more than 25 million people, the majority of them being civilians. Climax of imperialism. During the last 2 decades of the 19th century, foreigners crept deeper and deeper into Chinese territories. Their military and social influences intensified severely. The foreign powers that took the most land from the Manchu was Russia. They seized control of parts of Mongolia, Korea, and other areas north of modern-day China. The disintegration of the Manchu dynasty was accelerated when they went to war with Japan and surprisingly lost. The war was started because Japan began to take control of the Korean peninsula, an area controlled by the Manchu dynasty previously. After this, China began rapidly losing territory due to invading Western powers. There was a hysterical push for foreign powers trying to gain more and more territory, who were worried that a different foreign power would take control of China, therefore controlling the Chinese market. To stop a complete collapse of the Manchu dynasty, countries involved in this race for China agreed to the Open Door Notes, which guaranteed China territorial and economical safety. The agreement halted the fear that one country would conquer China, giving them access to 400 million Chinese customers. The Boxer Rebellion. The Boxer Rebellion was a violent anti-Christian revolt that took place in China during the Qin dynasty at the turn of the 20th century. The secret Chinese club known as the Society of Righteous and Harmonious fought the rising influence of the West. The group were nicknamed Boxers for the physical exercises they practiced, which resembled that of the sport. The group destroyed foreign property and killed foreign people, as well as the Chinese Christians. For 3 months in 1900, the group surrounded the capital city of Beijing. In 1901, an international force that included American troops finally subdued the revolt, putting an end to the rebellion.
Sun Yat-sen, born in 1866, was born in a village south of Canton. He was educated in Hawaii and then returned to his home of the Empire of China to practice medicine. Soon, he turned his full attention to the ills of Chinese society. Revolution of 1911. In October 1911, Sun's followers started an uprising in central China. The revolt lacked proper leadership with Sun in the United States, but the weak government was unable to react quickly. This caused political forces at the provincial level to deal with this, making it clear that the dynasty was practically diminished. Sun's rebellion lacked the military strength to overthrow the government completely, so they seek the help of Yuan Shikai, a prominent figure in the military since the turn of the century. He agreed to be the president of the new Chinese Republic. This marked the end of the old dynasty and the start of a program that was aimed towards the Chinese middle class. This was a system that had worked in Western Europe and North America, but due to the small middle class in China, the system was too weak to actually form a new political order. The events of 1911 were less of a revolution and more of a collapse of an old order that fell before new political and social forces were ready to replace it.
The impact that imperialism had in China was definitely immense. Whether it was good or bad is argued to this day. The Western colonies certainly did accelerate the Chinese economy, introducing the modern means of production, transport, and communications, as well as the creation of an export market and the integration of the Chinese market into the global economy. However, some people disagreed and argued that imperialism hurt China severely. Most of the people arguing this were Marxist thinkers, people who believed that if China was not interfered with, they would have developed their own local industrial and commercial areas, and that they would have turned capitalists themselves, given time. The Industrial Revolution that was forced upon China also caused the education rate to decline rapidly. The Confucian education that was given steadily began to drop, and less degrees were being earned. Imperialism did, however, make the lives of women much better in China. During the Manchu dynasty, women were expected to stay in the homes and were almost useless to their families' social and economic states. During the mid-19th century, Chinese women began to get more and more jobs in factories, and the practice of bookbinding began to stop, as it was once again necessary for women to leave the house and be on their feet for many hours of the day.